so encouraged, so grateful. I love being able to see your faces. So thank you, because this is kind of the first time I'm seeing a lot of you. And my name is Ashley Maines. And my husband and I just moved here about a month ago. And we feel so grateful to be here with you, to be in the Northeast. We genuinely feel like this is exactly where God wanted us to be, and I just feel so grateful to be able to speak with you tonight. I know some of you have heard our story, but just your willingness to not only open your doors for our family to come and be in the ministry here, but it's during a time that extra trust is needed because I've only met most of you virtually. And so I do feel glad to be able to speak to you and that our hearts can still be connected even in a time like this. So I do feel thankful to Maria for letting me speak. And I feel like I kind of hit the jackpot with this subject of Jesus being the Good Shepherd, because I think he has definitely been such a shepherd in my life. And I feel really grateful to be able to share with you guys a little bit about that tonight. So we're going to be looking at John 10. That's going to be our text for tonight. And I don't know what you feel just in your life right now, but I do think with all the uncertainty and the instability and the chaos in our world, the thought of Jesus being our shepherd is definitely a comforting one. And I think as women, we can particularly have this innate need for a good shepherd, someone to guide us, someone to provide for us, to heal us, but that can also protect us with their power and their strength. Because I know for me, I can be kind of a wanderer, and I'm always looking for security and maybe pretending to have it all together, but Jesus really knowing deep down what our souls actually need and what role he can fill. So I love that we get to dive into this passage together tonight and evaluate whether we're really recognizing and utilizing him in our life as our good shepherd. So we come into John 10, and I'm going to read a portion of it. And I'm going to try to give you a little context, just the chapter we're going to be looking at. Jesus has been performing a lot of miracles and healing people. And from chapter 9, we come in, he's just healed this blind man. And the Pharisees are questioning, whether his abilities are coming from God or from a demon. And so Jesus comes into John 10, just trying to kind of silence them and try to get to the heart of who he is and how to describe that to him and what motive he has in coming and helping people. So let's read in John 10. We're going to start in verse 9. And I'm going to do my best and share my screen with you for those of you who don't have a Bible in front of you. So I will play this. So John 10, starting in verse 9, it says, "I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy, but I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd." And, what a great passage. It's obviously filled with a lot of different analogies going on here. And, earlier in the chapter, Jesus calls himself the gatekeeper. And then in verse 9, where we picked up, he's the gate. And then finally in verse 11, he's the shepherd. So he's really kind of leaning into this analogy, which if you have more time to study it out, there's a lot to learn from each of these identities that Jesus has taken on, because each one means something really profound. But I'm going to focus tonight on his identity as the shepherd. And then the other common analogy is that we are the sheep. It's kind of funny that Jesus is the gatekeeper and the shepherd, and we're just the sheep the whole time. You know, we're kind of lowly in that sense. But I think Jesus, you know, in talking about this, he's trying to show the Pharisees his heart and help them question why would I be doing these miraculous healings unless I was here to just heal the sheep from a good place, a good motive. And he calls out false motives and evil, motivated people, but assures them that he's not one of them, that he's good, that he's here to heal people, just like he did the blind man in the previous chapter. But of all the things he could have used to describe himself in kind of convincing the Pharisees of who he is as a person, he pulled on an analogy of the Good Shepherd, really from the Old Testament, which these Pharisees whom he was speaking to would have automatically known he's connecting himself to God here. Because in Psalm 23, it's an incredible passage that David is describing God as our Good Shepherd. And obviously it's a very well-known chapter, but the peace of mind that we need to feel as his sheep. And now Jesus is saying, not only does God serve as our Good Shepherd, but I am now here on earth to put this identity of God on display. I've come to provide peace. I've come to heal, to protect, to guide you, and this is why you can trust me. This is why you can trust my heart. So what I wanted to do tonight is parallel some of the passages from John 10 that we just read through, and how he described himself as the shepherd, but also how Psalm 23 gives us a picture of what we should feel as the sheep because we have this good shepherd. So the scriptures that I'm going to show on the screen here, it's to kind of parallel both of these passages. So we're going to start in looking at verses 14 and 15 of John 10. And let me share this again. So John 10, it says in verse 14, it says, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And then in Psalm 23, verse 1, David is saying, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And so in looking at these two, reading John 10:14, Jesus is calling himself, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep and my sheep know me. I think he's implying that we have all that we need because he knows us. That if we've built an intimate relationship with Jesus and revealed ourselves to him, the good, the bad, the ugly, then he knows what to provide for us because he is this good shepherd, that we no longer have to be in want because he innately knows how to fill that deep need in our hearts. And I believe he really wants us to find peace in that. And then you have David identifying God as his shepherd, which was fitting for him to relate to because David had been a shepherd earlier in his life. But you have David saying, because of this truth that God is my shepherd, I don't have to worry. I don't have to look after myself. I should now feel that I have everything I need because this shepherd who knows me is looking after me. I shall not want. And in the NLT version, it says, I have all that I need. The Message version says, I don't need a thing. And it was honestly convicting to hear David here. And I want you to ask yourself, is this your spirit towards God? That you have this kind of humble, trusting posture in your life towards God? Or are you in constant want, constant desire for more, a constant need to get out of your situation or circumstance? A feeling of discontent, or is it one of trust? And I'll tell you right now that this is not who I am naturally. I can often feel overlooked. I think as women, we can put a lot of other people's needs before our own. But if you're anything like me, I can come to God and I feel like I need a lot. I need a lot from you, so much more than what I can naturally feel God is giving me. But I think Jesus is saying to us here, I know what you need during this quarantine. I know what you need the moment you wake up, what you need relationally, physically, and because I know you, I will provide for you, and your soul can find peace. Just let me lead you as your shepherd. And my family and I found this cool show called The Secrets of the Zoo on Disney Plus. I highly recommend it because it's kind of like the behind the scenes of what all these animals go through. But it's a show our kids like and that we like, and we've been watching it a few nights a week with our kids. And each of these animals, from the coolest of animals, these huge elephants, all the way down to these little spiders that are in the zoo, or a snake, which I can't stand snakes. But each one of them have their own caregiver. And they are literally aware of every single little need that this animal may have. And they notice if they stop eating, they notice if a lump has formed and they need to get it checked out. They literally notice everything. And it's really moving to see how emotionally attached and invested these zookeepers get with these animals. But it just reminded me of this analogy of how Jesus is our shepherd. Because I think David understood, okay, if I just recognize how I was as a shepherd and how I felt about my sheep and how intimately I knew them, that I have my own shepherd looking after me, and now I'm the sheep, I shall not want anything else. I will be completely provided for. I don't need anything. And I think Jesus is saying that I'm the good shepherd. I know you, and I want you to know and believe that I will provide for you, even in the biggest ways, but even the smallest ways. And I think it's good for us to think, how has God provided for us, even during this quarantine in the last few months, and really be conscious of that, because I think he is providing for us all the time. But the next part we're going to look at is in John 10. We're going to start in verse 9, kind of the second part of 9 there. And 9b through 10 says, they will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. And then Psalm 23, verses 2 and 3, he says, he makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And I love looking at these two because in this John scripture, Jesus is saying, I want you to hear my heart. I want the sheep to feel at ease, that I, the shepherd, I'm carrying their burden, and they will now be able to have life to the full. And then David more descriptively says, he makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. I love what Rose was saying, because I've been able to kind of go on all these trails, and there are very still waters. There's these little creeks. There's this, I encourage you to go outside, even if it's just for a walk, but it's beautiful right now. And who doesn't want to be led beside still waters or have their soul restored? But it's funny, when I hear he makes us lie down, it kind of sounds like a mom like making their child lay down like for a nap, like something they don't want to do. But in fact, in the Hebrew, it's actually saying that these sheep arrive to a pasture that they've never seen before, that they didn't believe ever existed. So when they get there, there's literally no desire to move on because it's so wonderful that they're like, I'm good right here. I don't have to wander anymore. I am completely content. And, I have to lie down because of how wonderful this is. A feeling of I'm right where I need to be. And I think that is how Jesus wants us to feel when we're conscious of we have this shepherd leading us. And I think I can be often kind of in this state of wanting this relentless kind of on this treadmill of life because I don't consistently grasp the power of recognizing Jesus as my shepherd. So I stay really busy. I'm discontent a lot. I'm emotionally kind of confused and anxious about all the changes going on in my life. And to be honest with you, I think on a large scale, I feel like this move couldn't prove anymore that Jesus is a good shepherd and is completely in control of my life. And that he's intimately caring for me and my family, that he was hearing my prayers and cries for help in the midst of great suffering, prayers for relief, to get us out of a very contentious and unhealthy situation. So honestly, I genuinely feel like he just delivered us from so much. But I think even in being here, it's been really challenging for me to kind of reach this state of complete peace and rest and feeling completely restored in my soul. And if you have anxiety or lack of trust in your sinful nature, God could deliver you from circumstances, but if your heart doesn't change along with it and see all that God is doing, you're going to feel the exact same way. You're still going to have anxiety. You're still going to lack that trust. And I think I had forgotten that I have a good shepherd to follow. Because when you're not following a shepherd, you're out on your own and you get self-protective. You worry a lot. You're always wanting. You're always searching for the next thing that's going to give you peace or happiness or security, but you're trying to find it on your own. And there's a restlessness that creates in you. And honestly, I think doing this lesson helped the light bulb turn on for me, because I realized even here, I've kind of been wandering without a shepherd, without a full comprehension of the peace of mind that Jesus wants to bring me if I just start following a shepherd and take my mind off of what I can feel and the restlessness in my heart and really look to him. And I think since moving here, my nature is kind of me check things off the to-do list and get a lot done. And I've been trying to transition, and physically move my life out here, but often I can do it on my own strength and my own understanding, and it can become too overwhelming. And it's really been a roller coaster emotionally, and I haven't known why. But, when sheep, one, don't realize that we're sheep, and two, don't realize that we have a shepherd that is trying to lead us, then you will be in this constant state of worry or frenzy, kind of lost and disconnected. And the Message version, in Psalm 23, 2 and 3, it says, "You have bedded me down in lush meadows. You find me quiet pools to drink from. True to your word, you let me catch my breath and send me in the right direction." And so I want to share with you who, any of you who have felt extra frenzied or anxious or underwater, especially with some of you whose careers have been on hold, or you're remote learning, the remote learning for our kids, and everyone's working from home, even watching the debates, with the quarantine starting to feel like it may never end. I know I can feel that way, that Jesus really wants you. He wants to let you catch your breath, and he wants to send you in the right direction. And I think we try to always kind of have it together as women, when in reality, God sees us as sheep. He knows we're just sheep, and we're just kind of wandering and kind of dumb sometimes, but he wants to lead us in the right direction and make us lie down in the most beautiful of places and really bring peace to our souls. So I think from these verses, Jesus really wants us to know that he will restore our soul, and that should give us immense peace of mind. And this last part I want to look at is John 10, 11 and 12. I'll share this. It says, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it." And then Psalm 23, verse 4 says, "Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Your rod and your staff protect me and comfort me." And I love these two passages because it's another depth, it's another layer of who Jesus is as our shepherd. And in verse 11, he again talks about how he's going to lay down his life for his sheep. He will do everything he possibly can to protect the sheep, to protect us. But he implies that we're going to be attacked and we're going to go through the darkest of valleys. But I think what Psalm 23, verse 4 wants us to understand is that even before we enter those darkest valleys, and while we're in them, God is close beside us, that he knows what to provide for us. He knows how to restore us and carry us through those times. You know, our shepherd will be there with us, and we can find great peace in that. But I don't know what you think of when you hear, "Even when I walk through the darkest valley." It may be a time in your life. But what I shared with Stuart a couple weeks ago about all we went through with our youngest daughter, that was definitely one of those times. And I can affirm that God was very close beside me in that time. I think it's kind of in the darkest and the hardest of times that if we allow ourselves to see him, we'll realize God is closer than he's ever been. And if you've experienced a loss or suffered physically with chronic illness or watched someone you love go through immense suffering, those can be some of those dark valleys. But if you keep praying and keep looking up, you will recognize God is right there, closer than ever. And I think after you've gone through a dark valley, it can be hard to enter into another one. And that's a little bit, I think, of what I'm kind of experiencing right now. You know, I think we said that our daughter needs to have a surgery again, and we don't know how long of a road this will be. And we're kind of putting it off until the next year because we want to get our feet under us right now, just with the transition. But I was feeling extremely anxious about it. And so I started seeing a therapist, and today was my first therapy session. And, you know, she helped me recognize that just because I talk a lot about it, that it doesn't mean that I've really connected with or processed all the pain that I had during it. And she said, you know, when you talk a lot about it, because I said, you know, our church family has helped us through it, and our physical family and our friends, I talk about it a lot. And she says, I think sometimes when you do that, it becomes more of a story that you're kind of disconnected from, rather than really connecting emotionally to what that was like to go through. And you know, I think I can feel really scared to kind of go back into that dark valley of, one, what the unknown holds of just what her condition will be like for the rest of her life, but also to kind of unearth some of the pain and some of the effects that it had on me as a mother, as a wife, and what that was like to go through. And I think even just hearing David's reminders in this passage helped my heart in going through the darkest valley, to have a spirit of, I won't be afraid because I know you're close. And your rod and your staff will protect me and they will comfort me. You know, the staff is kind of like a stick that will gently guide me through this to prevent me from like going off and wandering off. But that the rod is to fight off every enemy and every bad thought and every fear that wants to discourage me, that the shepherd will protect me with those things. But I must walk closely to the shepherd and walk, you know, and really follow him and let him lead me through this. But I wanted to end out with just what our life will feel like if we consciously and humbly surrender to this shepherd who really wants to care for us every day of our lives. And in the Message version, I'll share. In chapter 23, verse 5, it says, "You revive my drooping head. My cup brims with blessing. Your beauty and love chase after me every day of my life. I'm back home in the house of God for the rest of my life." And I just loved the way it shared that, because I think that is what Jesus wants us to feel, that we're safe when we're walking closely with God. And I'm going to pray for us to end out here, and then you're going to be added into a breakout room that won't go past 8:30, so it won't be too late. But I encourage you to stay, for those of you who can, because I do think we can be good shepherds for one another with wherever we're at and whatever we're going through. So please stay if you can, and I'll finish out here with a prayer. God, thank you so much